Hello. Welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Ngag again. I want to thank you for always taking your time to come and pass through my channel as you have a look at maybe what may help you in your day-to-day life. Today we're going to start a series of videos, and we're really going to emphasize or really dwell on the chronic conditions that people could suffer, what we often call as comorbidity in medicine. So today we're going to talk about high blood pressure, and I'm going to try and maybe talk about this because from the recent data we're getting is that most people really dying of COVID are people with these chronic conditions, especially high blood pressure or diabetes and asthma, especially if these conditions are actually poorly controlled. Now, remember, hypertension is very common. Hypertension is actually a measure of blood pressure. Blood pressure is actually a measure of the resistance that the heart gets when it's trying to pump, blood through the vessels, or the blood vessels, which includes arteries and veins, and at some point, capillaries. Now, when we talk of the blood pressure being high, it means the resistance in these vessels, which are channels through which the blood passes to the tissues, is actually increased. So when this resistance is increased, the heart is actually forced to pump, with a lot of force, so that this blood can actually reach to the tissues in the normal way. So a normal heart is normally meant to pump blood through these vessels in a seamless manner, such that it actually gets to the tissues. So when this balance is lost, such that these vessels are more resistant, the heart is going to use more force to pump this blood to these tissues on the other end. So what happens, if in this heart, each and every day, obviously this resistance keeps increasing, and then the heart's, force required to pump this blood to the tissues also keeps doing what? Increasing. Now, heart is a muscle. Every time the resistance of the vessels increases, this heart's force of contraction and pumping needs to keep doing what? Increasing. And as a muscle, muscles tend to hypertrophy or increase in size as you actually force-free or make use of them. So when the heart is strained, the heart keeps enlarging because of the strain of it trying to pump the blood to the systems. What happens is a point comes where this heart, the heart of a given size, which was meant to pump blood seamless to the vessel, to the tissues, is unable to do that. The larger heart will need more oxygen, it will need more blood, so that it can actually be able to perform the same function of actually pumping this blood to the tissues. But however, this is because of increased resistance between the heart and the tissues. So the heart enlarges, it reaches a point where you find its demand for blood and oxygen becomes too much, such that the heart at some point will lack enough oxygen and enough blood. That's why when you find someone with a heart attack, basically this really happens when they're excited, when they have anxiety, when they're working, they're on a treadmill, they're doing a morning run, because this is the time you need the heart to pump faster than usual, so that you can get enough blood actually to the muscles in your calves, in your body, so that they can actually propel you forward. So this is the time you find the heart needs a lot of oxygen for it to pump and blood for it to pump faster. But you find that the amount of blood in the body is not enough, or the strength of the heart is not really enough to pump enough blood to the heart itself before it can actually get strength to pump blood to other parts of the body. Remember, it's like you can't help others when you're not able to help yourself first. If you don't have money, you're not going to help your friend by buying food to them. You need to buy food for yourself first, your family. When it's well fed, then you can actually feed your neighbor. So that's the same thing with the heart. It needs to be strong first before it can do what? It can pump. So this is what happens when this blood pressure keeps increasing without us actually doing what? Managing. So mostly what we do with this blood pressure medication that we normally give someone is actually to try and manage this blood pressure. Why we do this is simple. We give medications which are either going to increase the strength of the heart, so the heart, they actually help the heart to pump, they augment the heart's pumping capacity. We also have some that are going to change the diameter of these blood vessels, so that especially like veins, they dilate so that a lot of blood can come back to the heart. And when the heart has a lot of blood, then it's actually gonna be able to pump to the systems. So the other thing is, you find that now the heart itself, over time, if we give medication, we try and actually minimize this resistance by either increasing the size of these vessels or making the heart to pump stronger or to augment its pumping capacity, such that we are able to actually pump blood to the system or to the vessels without a lot of straining, which actually tries to maintain the size of the heart, and so minimizing the chance of us actually getting to a heart attack and actually heart failure, where the heart fails completely eventually, which happens because, first of all, you find this same heart doesn't have enough blood supply, its walls become weak. So you find this heart is actually not able to pump, and sometimes the valves, which are actually like gates, once the heart pumps blood out to the vessels, there are gates that actually close to prevent this blood from coming back. But when this is compromised because of damage to the walls of the heart from heart attack, because of lack of enough oxygen, you find that this heart is likely to do what? To fail, because now these valves are not working. Then you also now come to find these people become puffy, with swollen legs, or lower limbs, difficult in breathing, because you find there is seepage of fluid into the lungs. So these are things really that actually come to happen in the late stages, especially if you're not keen on your medication. But if you're on medication, it may take several years before you get any of these symptoms of heart failure or heart attack. So this really helps, and this is why we often emphasize that when you're given a medication, make sure you're compliant. That means take your medication every day. And if you miss medication, please make sure you do it before you sleep. So keep a chart, have a book somewhere, which you keep record of your blood pressures. It can also be actually used to indicate to help you every day to know whether you've taken the medications or not, because this normally would actually help you track your blood pressure. The other thing is, let's have a machine at home. Now, if your blood pressure is above 140 over 90, that means your pressure is actually high. And again, for someone who is hypertensive, and be it your diabetic or not, normally the figure we target is actually something below 140 over 90. But your pressure can be normal. So depending on how compliant you are with the medication, on which kind of medications you're on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Now, remember, hypertension normally runs in families. You realize that about 5% of cases of hypertension are actually familial. About 95% of the cases are actually idiopathic. We don't know the cause. Nobody explains the cause. We also have a small percentage that comes together with diabetes in what we call the metabolic syndrome, which is actually lifestyle related, together with obesity, central obesity, where you find you have obesity in you have fatty deposits in your abdomen, and of course normally that is what we call metabolic syndrome. It's normally common in people who are sedentary mostly. So those are some of the the causes. The other thing is, now when we're giving medication, we often look at the race, we look at someone's age and whether they're on other medications, because normally there is interaction between medications, which actually can be bad for the patient. So if your pressure is well controlled with these medications, your heart is actually less likely to enlarge, which means your heart is not compromised. You actually live a normal life like anybody else. Now the issue becomes when your pressure is not controlled, which means your heart is erratic, you can get abnormal rhythm sometimes, your blood pressure is on the roof, and now you find the body is very unstable, the heart is very unstable. If you get an infection such as COVID-19, you find that your body and your heart are already compromised, such that any minor compromise from a beta disease, from a stress, could actually take you down. That is actually why people with COVID-19 and poorly controlled blood pressure and other things like diabetes, they're actually doing poorly. That's why you find that actually between 30 and 70% are actually not making it. A majority of people dying from COVID-19 are actually people with chronic conditions. Of course, hypertension being one of them. So, and in fact, hypertension is one thing that has been found consistently in most of these patients who are dying from this COVID-19. So I think what I want to emphasize as I finish this talk about hypertension is, let's make sure our blood pressure is well controlled. Have a machine at home, keep records every day, in the morning, afternoon, evening, if you can. But again, remember, doing pressure checks that frequent can also cause stress. So you could even do it once a day in the morning and maybe in the evening, or once every morning, or actually doing it every evening is even better, because after the day stress, you need to know how your pressure has been is maybe in the evening before you go to rest. Number two, make sure you take your blood pressure medication. I have a guy I saw, 75-year-old male, brought in by relatives because he actually looked confused. This guy normally takes his medications around 6 a.m. every day, but on a given day, he decided that he's not going to take his medications. So around 8 a.m. in the morning, the guy looks confused. The family is worried what is happening to this guy, so they rush him to hospital. I sent him for a CAT scan. That's a brain CAT scan. And to my, disbelief, this guy really has a stroke. And this is, and stroke is also types. We have hypertensive, where you find the blood pressure goes so high and then it ruptures a vessel in the brain and causes seepage of blood into the brain, which compresses on the nerves and can now cause either death if it's massive. It can cause change of behavior. It can cause many other things. So weakness on one side of the body. I think you have seen people with stroke. That is actually also because of bad poor control of the blood pressure. So COVID-19 needs a body that is stable, needs a heart that is stable, and a stable heart for hypertensives actually comes from us making sure that our blood pressure is well controlled and within the limits. Remember, anybody's blood pressure can be controlled. Be it you're going to be on 10 medications, actually your blood pressure is going to be controlled. You just need to be consistent on your follow-ups. If you're a consultant doctor, give them a call. If you can't, that is if you can't make it to their clinics, and if they even advise an admission, I think it would be important so that your pressure actually stabilizes as we try to go through this crisis of the COVID-19. Remember, COVID-19 is real. I personally have seen patients who have COVID-19. So let nobody tell you that, this is a hoax. No. COVID-19 is very real, and that it's actually killing people. And but then what is encouraging is that most people are actually making out of it. Mortality is about 5%. That's what I'm saying. We need to make sure that our health is on check. You're hypertensive, your pressure is fine, you're on medication, you're very active, you're either jogging or doing brisk walking, you're going to the gym if you have a gym in the house. But again, the bottom line is, let's keep social distancing, let's use masks, let's sanitize and wash our hands. Above all, let's follow the basic public health rules and lay down strategies that actually will help us prevent the spread of this COVID-19. I think as a healthcare provider, I can actually tell you that COVID-19 is real. Your control of your blood pressure is actually what will take you through this easily. So don't be scared. Most people are actually making it through, even if they're hypertensive, especially if their blood pressure is well controlled. I think that would be it for now. Please watch the video, share it with your friends, and above all, you can actually subscribe and invite your friends to subscribe. And I think what is more important is, I hope this information helps you as an individual, especially if you have high blood pressure. And please, guys, let's get our blood pressure sugars checked every now and again. Once we've done a medical camp in Kakamega, and actually we realized interestingly, about 30% of the population had high blood pressure, and actually less than 0.1% knew that they had of this knew that they had high blood pressure. So you can imagine that randomly doing a screening in a community, and that is a local community in the village, we get 30% of people with high blood pressure. Imagine now if you live especially in the cities. So let's get our blood pressure checked regularly and routinely, our blood sugar. Let's make sure everything is up to date, so that we avoid getting into a stage where it's too late, you have had high blood pressure for so long without knowing. Some people actually are diagnosed with high blood pressure when they are found to have heart failure or even a heart attack, which means they've had a high blood pressure for so long and they haven't been keen on that end. So I think that is it for now. Have a good evening. Thank you.